Good evening, everyone. So I basically am a backwaters guy. There's a small story here. Humor me for a while. My great grandfather was, into logistics. When I say that, he, yeah, thanks. So he had a couple of those houseboats. I don't know if you have been. Quick show of hands, please. Who's been on those Kerala houseboats? Great. Those were actually not supposed to be tourist attraction. They were cargo boats. Okay. We used to carry the paddy from the fields all the way to the ports. So essentially, he was in logistics, and I think I'm really kicked about the fact that I'm actually helping do some logistics analytics using data science for one of the largest companies in the world, right? So my great grandfather would have been really proud of me, right? Right, and first of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here. As a data scientist, it's my duty to just do a quick fact check here. So please humor me again. Quick show of hands for IIT Bombay alumni. Other IITs? Okay, and how about people who are in data science? Okay, how about people with totally less than 5 years of experience? Greater than 15 years? All right, thank you. Thank you very much. All right. So this is how we normally start, by collecting data. What I do with it is probably a different thing. So, all right. Usually they say, like if you torture data long enough, it will confess to anything you want it to, right? Right. So we generally torture it a lot, and I have a couple of my colleagues here who are equally adept at torturing data. All right. Now with that, what I'm going to say is, I'll tell you where we are right now, but I also want to know how we got there, right? And since this is a career leap program, that I believe will help you in deciding if you want to go to the next step, what is the next best thing to do. And if you have any other questions, feel free to come and talk to our experts at the booth. So with that, let me proceed. So we are doing a lot of cool stuff at Walmart. At a high level, without going into the details, let me tell you, we can do stuff like, when you're in retail, the first thing that you do is decide what's the best location for your, stores. So our legendary founder, Sam Walton, used to do this. He used to get on a Cessna plane and fly around in the US, look at the best locations, look at the traffic flows, competitors, and so on, and then decide where to place the next store. Now, Sam had a great intuition, right? One of our teams is actually doing that and trying to get a machine learning algorithm to do exactly that, all right? And I cannot reveal all the details, but they've been fairly successful at it, right? We're talking about the difference of millions of dollars when it comes to placing it at the right location, right? So that's just one of the things that we're doing. Like, there are a lot of cool things that can be done with the new tools and the trends that I've seen in the market. I've seen over the last decade, things have accelerated like crazy, right? This term data scientist didn't exist when we started off. So it was the, pardon me for using the term, the boring statistical analysis, right? And full of lectures. Again, no offense to anyone, but it was considered the driest subject, right? But half these cool things need that statistical underpinnings, right? I wish we learned it with the end goal of doing something like, if I told you something like I was in a startup earlier, and we actually built a predictor for a cricket match, right? And it was supposed to give the outcome of the match on a ball-by-ball basis, right? Live. And the first reaction I normally get when I tell this people, so why didn't you go into betting, right? Okay, so we didn't, but mathematically it is possible to do it. We've got fairly good amount of success with about 88% accuracy or so, right? Can be done. Now, I wish we knew all these things were possible when we were learning the maths and stats part, right? Now, having said that, this is one of the fundamental things. You also need a lot of other skills, and I'll talk about some of those things. So now I'm going to talk about how things have changed over the last decade or so, and how fast things are moving, and what that means on the career front. So if you really look at it, the tools and the techniques have fundamentally not changed. The basic math is more or less the same. People might have come out with new algorithms, new ways of doing it on much larger data, all right? But the fundamentals have not really changed. Now, what that means is as a data scientist, you need to have these three things. Basically, you need to know the stats or the math. You need to know the domain, right? And you need to have the right tool sets for it. That's pretty much it. So when I say the domain, right, in retail and or in logistics or supply chain, we have the domain knowledge. You need to learn how to apply it in an intelligent way. So the same cricket model that I told you about, if I try to apply it in baseball, it's not going to work, right? So that's where the domain comes in. You need to know where to apply it, right? And the other thing I've seen is people have become amazing storytellers with the stats. So we're not talking about p-values, we're not talking about tests, right? Nobody wants to hear all that. The way the story comes across and how it's built with proof. And there are amazing tools out there. You can present a story, you can do a flow, you can build amazing visuals, and not much of coding required at this point in time. Earlier it used to take a lot of coding and effort, but it's relatively painless now. And I've also seen the ecospace and you can see there are a lot of institutes that are coming up. Online education is coming up. That's changed the landscape like tremendously. To give an example, earlier you need to go to institutes that had a B-stat or an M-stat like the ISIs, right? And some of my colleagues are from the ISI. So the IITians normally tend to go to the big data engineering side, not so much on the stats side. And now it's become so easy for us to pick up anything online. Right? So many courses, many of them free, many world-class institutes sharing their material. Of course, you cannot substitute the real class interaction and all that, but there are so many opportunities to learn on your own. Nothing is stopping you there. So if you don't have a basic B-stat or a M-stat, it's easy to pick it up right now. It's just about how much effort you're going to put in. And a lot of startups coming with their niche platforms and tools and patents. So that's changed the way things have worked. So even Walmart Labs started off as Cosmic Labs. It was acquired by Walmart. So there's a lot of innovation that's happening in the ecospace these days, right? And again, the consultants versus captives, that's also driving the way things are evolving in the market. What do I mean by that? So as a consultant, you have to build your pyramid, you have to grow your revenue. You're always running faster and faster to grow bigger and bigger. Headcount is the game there. In a captive, things are slightly different. You don't have to sell to anybody. As long as the work you're doing makes sense to the business partners, you're in business. All right? So both these are different forces driving the market as we speak. Now, one of the biggest changes or the game changers in this field has been, the contests, online contests, Kaggle, Analytics Vidya, all these contests. Now, people are coming out with amazing algorithms, they're collaborating with each other, they're building better and better tools and techniques, stuff that was not possible without this happening. So that's one of the biggest game changers in this field. Now, a couple of my colleagues have actually won the Kaggle equivalent here, and they have used techniques which are like a combination of multiple techniques. All that wouldn't have been possible without happening, this sort of collaboration happening online. Milestones. Anybody here who has not heard about the Netflix campaign, the contest, right? It's one of the most famous things. It was a big milestone, right? And it went on, and then you had to, choose the movie recommendation. What was the next best recommendation? And people went crazy about that. And this was one of the biggest game changers in the online market. Now, people started looking at McKinsey's report on big data, and there were obviously ways to kickstart that, but then one of the biggest impetuses that we felt was from some of these big brand names taking on this as the next big thing. Big data is big. The data science, the term, I think DJ Patil probably would have coined it. And so now that's where we are, right? Jeopardy, is another big game changer. So what's the common thread there? Companies are taking it up. Companies are making a splash, they're making waves, and that is, bringing a lot of interest in the market. So earlier, if you told people like, yeah, you do statistical analysis, you do some prediction, all that, yes, that's okay, that's fine, right? Now, if you go tell somebody you're data scientist, like that's seen as a cool thing, right? Right, and that's the reason why I get called for some of these things, at least where they want gray matter. I have a lot of it outside, but then, I get called for all these. So it's seen as a cool thing to be, in demand. And the other thing that is changing the market is the way organizations are structured, right? And how many of these are determined by people in the know. What do I mean by that? In the earlier scheme of things, before big data came into the scene, it was more BI and data warehousing. So that's a different world compared to what machine learning and the algorithms that we are building is doing. So if you put somebody in charge who is not from this world, that organization takes a different path. And on the other hand, what's the strategic goal of your organization? I've seen a lot of people in the market, especially in Bangalore, and this is very important for your career as well. A lot of companies claim they do analytics or data science. Most of it is window dressing. We've seen so many candidates in the market who come and, they say they got attracted to a place because they thought there was analytics in it. But it's more from, putting up a good front in front of the investors. Unless the company's strategic direction is driven by decisions taken by, pure analytics, they're going anywhere. And the attract and retain the strategies, right? People are going all out to try and develop talent. The number of trainings you're given, the investment people make in you, all that is determined by, the right kind of leadership and vision that you have, right? And again, it depends on where you are in your stage of growth. So if you're just a small company, you're just starting off, there is a lot of emphasis on getting your bread and butter from stable revenue, right? Where you may not be able to do a lot of high-end stuff, and the emphasis is more on, getting the bread and butter. On the other hand, you cannot be in a large company which doesn't give you the flexibility to do what you want. So I've been really fortunate in that sense to have a small team within a large organization, so that startup within a big company really comes to play in this, all right? Moving on, what are the real trends that's happening? Open source, open source, open source, right? It's like location, location, location in retail. Pretty much everybody is moving towards open source. And you have so many different ecosystems being built. Every 6 months something new comes up, and we are constantly challenged to learn something every 6 months. Now, how deep do you want to go? I'll come to that in the next slide. Basically, all these need not be sustainable. There are fads, then there are sustainable trends. So you need to pick and choose where you're going to put your effort. So from a career perspective, where do I invest my time? That's one of the most common questions that I've heard. And I'll come to the logic behind deciding what that is in a couple of slides, right? So like I said, social media, access to expert, solution online, pretty much everyone is an expert. And these new tools are bringing this trend that, hey, the turnaround time is also much quicker. Some of the solutions that we have built have been done in less than 5 days, okay? And we're talking about robust solutions. I had the opportunity to work with a fairly high tension deadline. In my previous company, the CEO had this meeting with another CEO. So that was a big high tension, high risk job, right? So we went in there thinking that, hey, this is not going to happen because it's usually a 2-month proof of concept project, right? He wanted it in 5 days. And we were able to turn it around because we had the right tools. My skill sets hadn't really improved that much, but the right tools in the hands of the right people, we were able to turn it around in 5 days or less. So that's another thing that I'm seeing. People want results, and they want them quick. They're not looking for the final answer, right? But they want the answers quick. And the tools that we have out there, amazing tools. Some of them are just drag and drop, and you can build your model. One of the first models that I built, this was a particularly tough time for me when my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. So one of the models that we built was how to predict a different sort of cancer. 5 minutes was all it took to build a model. All right. So the point I'm trying to make is, it doesn't require tons and tons of coding. It doesn't require so much experience, so much expertise and patience. Nobody has patience these days. Business wants answers yesterday, right? So that's the other thing that I'm seeing. And the flat world concept. So one of the tools that we learned, it was taught to us by a 24-year-old guy, and he was seen as the expert. He has his own YouTube channel, he has his book coming out, and these are tools that are not even in the market. So I got it tested because we were a beta tester for that same company, and these tools are allowing people to reach results faster. What that means is you're able to iterate much faster than earlier. And nobody wants to be the guy who says, hey, no, we'll come back in another 6 months and tell you whether it works or not, right? So everybody is jumping onto the bandwagon there. And the last one, I cannot emphasize this enough, storytelling. Amazing tools out there, right? The story comes out. There are tools where you just throw the data in and the story pops up. It's as easy as that. There's a show me button. You just click on that and then you see the story come out, right? It's as easy as that. And that's helping the vision of everyone, democratizing the storytelling concept. And I know that everybody cannot be a good storyteller, right? It takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of experience, but now these tools are helping you to say the story out much faster, much easier, and in a visually amazing way, right? So what do we have? Again, better tools. I'm far more productive now than I was earlier, maybe another 10 years back. The body of knowledge has improved tremendously. So, in fact, let me give an example of one of my fresher colleagues. He's a BITS planning graduate. Fresh guy, within 6 months of joining us. So he's giving his own lecture at the Fifth Elephant Conference. And he's done one deep learning with a network of like 1,200 layers. And these are like scary stuff. We used to spend like one entire semester studying about neural networks, right? And this guy just builds it within 6 months of his joining. And so there are amazing tools. People are becoming much better at what they used to do earlier. And newer techniques are also available to us. The last two, again, online collaboration platforms, how to reskill yourself, very easy, right? And again, let me talk about a couple of things out here. Methodologies, more or less the same, but the combination of methodologies is becoming more and more important these days. And I'm seeing the convergence of operations research and machine learning and stats, NLP, all that is coming together. So today, you won't find a guy who is like a pure ML guy or a pure OR guy. The job or the business requires you to have these multiple skills. So you pick it up along the way anyway, regardless of where you came from, the background, what undergrad you had, right? So that's happening a lot. So earlier you used to have this thing called unicorn data scientists. They used to say you need some stats, you need to have some big data, you need to have the domain part. That has become really mutated in the sense that you won't believe the kind of skill sets a person has coming on board, right? It's amazing. You're seeing a lot of these mutations happening all the time. And I believe that will continue, and that's the trend. And the last one is about the noise to signal ratio. Earlier, when people used to talk about analytics, a dashboard was also called analytics. A BI data warehouse was also called analytics. Now, that is changing. The whole definition of analytics and data science is also changing. So when you say this is noise, this is signal, you need to be able to understand that the goalpost itself is changing. Who is considered as data scientist today may not be the same tomorrow. The skill sets, the requirements, all that is changing. So where are we actually seeing the benefits, and where are we really seeing it really making an impact? Number one, where you have high computation intensive tasks, right? Let's say if I was to do a logistics optimization, I were to do a route optimization, or maybe even just setting up of an infrastructure, right? Earlier, it used to take hours to do the computing, and these days with parallel processing, we got all kinds of technology, GPU technologies there. We've got Spark. You'll probably see a demo in our booth sometime later if you're interested. That has cut down the computation time, and even if it is a highly complex algorithm, you can reduce the computation time with these techniques, right? In fact, one of my colleagues is here just for that, just to show you a demo on running on Spark. It's an H2O model running on Spark. It's very cool. You can see how fast it's running on just a laptop. So just imagine if you have the resources, like if you have multiple cores, multiple servers, just imagine how fast you can get the business to run. And where we're seeing it is where accuracy improvement is essential. At our scale,